This is Screen Junkies Movie Fights, brought to you by Loot Crate. Now your host, Andy Signore.
Hello, Screen Junkies. Welcome to another awesome edition of Movie Fights. I am so excited because the Oscar nominations just dropped today, and we get to react to them immediately. Plus, we lost two amazing people that we're going to break down and talk about in tribute. So, a very good episode. Don't get excited. Oscar talk, David Bowie talk, Alan Rickman talk. This is going to be a good one, so stay tuned. Let's introduce these fighters today. I'm so excited. Co-host of Girls and Film Profiles, our very own Alicia Malone.
Hello. It's been Alicia. A while since I've fought.
I know you've stepped in to help host this for a while, but now you get to fight again. Are you nervous?
I'm nervous, but I'm also really excited because of the categories and because of who I'm fighting. I think this could be my favorite movie fights ever.
Ooh.
And also the toughest.
Next to her, it's a new fighter, but familiar face in the movie world, movie press world. She's writer-producer. It's Amirose Eisenbach. Welcome.
Yay. I'm so happy to finally be here, especially with my sister from another mister and the reigning champ.
This is intense. There's some serious pressure. You got two amazing fighters, so.
I know.
But sometimes that you can squeak through that way. The newbie can sometimes do it, so don't lose faith. You said it though. The champ is here. Dan Murrell. The title's not on the line, but you're back.
I'm back, and I'm ready. I love talking about Oscars, hates and loves, and everything else. This is my favorite time of the year, movie-wise. So
yes.
Dan's also a favorite week because we just launched something special, didn't we? It's on my shirt.
We did. We just launched Interns of Field.
That's right.
And we're excited for episode 2 coming up on Sunday.
Guys, I hope you all watched it. If you're watching on YouTube and you didn't, go watch on ScreenJunkies Plus. This is the Revengers logo. Right next to my Galaxy Quest logo.
Well played.
See, isn't that nice? All right. Reminder how this works. You're new, so I want to make sure we're basing this on your point, your creative points, your facts, your passion. That's what it is. It's not about what I like the best. It's what you tell me is the best based on your arguments. Any questions before we begin? Nope. Great. Before we begin, Ken, I got to introduce you because you're going to also help me with this next segment. Ken Napzok is on the Dan cam, on the Pit Boss cam.
It's the cam, man. I'm here on the couch. This is going to be a film geek fantastic episode. This is like the Super Bowl for you film nerds, and this is great. This is going to be fun to watch. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of facts flying around.
No, you better keep track. It gives me a tough one. But Ken, I want you to help me because you have a Loot Crate over there. And today, I'm so glad to have him back. Sponsoring today's episode is Loot Crate. We have their last month's box, which is the fantastic holiday shirt I wish I would have had.
Christmas on Mars.
Christmas on Mars. If you don't know, and you should know by now, Loot Crate delivers 6 to 8 curated items around a theme, many of which are exclusive and awesome, including my Galaxy Quest pin, which I think Ken has a copy of as well. And look at that Han Solo Funko.
Look at this,
Galaxy Quest pin. Those Star Wars socks are amazing. This is the kind of stuff you can get if you subscribe to Loot Crate. If you subscribe by January 19th at 9 p.m., you can receive the Invasion Crate, which includes items from Alien, Space Invaders, The Fifth Element, and so much more. So guys, support Loot Crate. That's supporting us. You can go do that. Their crates shipped right to your door for less than $20 a month. And if you go use the code word MovieFights by going to lootcrate.com/moviefights, you will save 10% off of your new subscription. Again, code word MovieFights, lootcrate.com/moviefights, 10% off. I mean, Ken, can you beat it?
You can't, man. I don't want to drive to a store and buy these toys. You get this Force
You can't
Awakens,
get that toy anywhere
Han
else.
Solo on Starkiller base gear.
You already told me you're taking that home.
I've stolen it already.
All right, thank you guys at home, and thank you, Loot Crate. Let's get to this, shall we?
Yes.
Whoa. All right, round one. Let's take it.
This is where we fight!
Fight! You only get one, JT, today. Come on. Round one. Here it comes, up on the screen. Oscar nominations clearly are out, and people and movies, so many weren't nominated that should have been. The biggest question we got on Twitter was this one, and we took one from Garrett McDowell, #1 on Twitter, who asked us, what is the biggest Oscar snub? Now, to make this more interesting, it's not just telling me the snub, you have to replace one. I want you to take away someone who got nominated, take away and say they didn't deserve it, and sub it in with the person who did. And so, Alicia, we're starting with you. Who is the biggest snub, and who would you replace?
I think the biggest snub was Todd Haynes, Best Director, who directed Carol. I would take out Adam McKay for The Big Short. Now, The Big Short, it deals with some very complex financial terms. There's a lot that people have to try to understand, and it is unnecessarily complex. There are so many characters, so many storylines, so many visuals. There's cameos by celebrities. There's fourth wall breaking. There's so much going on. I left the film feeling even more confused confused by the subject matter than when I went into it. And all their interviews on the red carpet were all about demystifying the financial crisis and making average people understand it so that you know, it doesn't happen again. They also thought that they made a pretty tragic moment in history, mainstream entertainment, and tried to make it funny. On the other scale, you have someone like Todd Haynes with Carol. Carol is understated, it is elegant, it's beautiful, it shows a lovely relationship, it's got great performances as well. Every frame looks like a photograph, not to mention that Todd Haynes has been nominated for a lot of awards in the lead up to this. So that's why for biggest snub, I'm saying Todd Haynes.
Got it. Amy Rose, who are you picking for your biggest snub?
Ryan Coogler to swap in Adam McKay. Ryan had a very, very daunting task of not only, you know, continuing this beloved franchise. He had to hit the nostalgia points, hit the continuity points. He also had to bring in this new generation to love it, give Sly the best possible performance of his life. And not only did he do all of this, but he also wrote it. He also created an incredibly strong female character opposed to a throwaway one. He just had so many great points. I completely agree with McKay. I felt like that film was very frenetic. They focused on too many characters. It would have been much more powerful to do a couple stories opposed to just made it feel very diluted across the board. And I agree, it was a very sad moment in history. And I don't think McKay, I know he's really good at comedy, but that sensibility I think should have been toned down a little bit. It would have made it more effective.
All right, Dan, what are you picking?
Oh, I've got so much to say about Adam McKay, but I'll wait till you redirect. I went to the Best Actor category because there's been a lot of talk about the acting categories. Again, this year are not very diverse. Putting that issue aside, just on a performance-for-performance basis, for Best Actor, I'm taking out Bryan Cranston for Trumbo, which I thought was a great HBO original movie performance, but not Best Actor performance. He was good, and I'm putting in Samuel L. Jackson from The Hateful Eight. And I think that people take Samuel L. Jackson for granted at this point, partly because he's in everything. He's in so many different movies, and he's never terrible in them. He's always Samuel L. Jackson sometimes, but he's never terrible in them. And I think when they saw The Hateful Eight and they saw Samuel L. Jackson, like, oh, well, there's Samuel L. Jackson just doing another Samuel L. Jackson performance. There's so much going on with his character in the movie. You start out, you think you know who he is and where he's coming from. Throughout the course of the movie, you realize that everything you thought that you knew about that character is completely wrong. Most of the debate about this movie focuses on his character. When's he telling the truth? When's he not telling the truth? Did this happen the way he said it did, or did it not happen the way he said it did? This speech that he gives at the end of Act 1 of that movie alone should have been enough to get him a Best Actor Oscar nomination. And the fact that not only was he not nominated for an Oscar, but that he wasn't considered for any of the other awards that were leading up to this, I think is a travesty. I would take out Cranston. I love you, Bryan Cranston, but it was an okay performance in an okay movie, and I would put in Samuel L. Jackson.
All right, fight, guys.
So Samuel L. Jackson, brilliant, and I love The Hateful Eight. I'm one of the few people that really enjoyed that movie, but he would be supporting actor. He wouldn't be lead actor, because if you look, it's an ensemble piece, and he has the same amount of screen time as Jennifer Jason Leigh, and she is Best Supporting Actress. I also don't think that it's a snub in the way that he's not been talked about for any awards. You said it yourself, he hasn't been nominated for any awards, so nobody was expecting him to win. I agree that Bryan Cranston's performance was very TV movie, but if you have to sub him from someone, I would say Will Smith in Concussion. Great performance. He's back in acting form, does an accent. That's tough to do.
You already said the biggest argument. Samuel L. Jackson plays Samuel L. Jackson, and this is exactly the point made. This is a Tarantino film. They are all just pieces in the magic and vision of Tarantino. Trumbo, sure, you might not love that film, but he did an amazing portrayal of that real-life person based on an important part of history, again, for Hollywood. But Samuel L. Jackson, he's a national treasure. We love him, but I definitely don't think he outshined any of the other actors in the category. I think it's the way it should be.
I completely disagree. First of all, on the supporting actor thing, if you're going to break The Hateful Eight into two halves, I think that he and Kurt Russell share the lead in the first half of the movie, and I think that he takes over that movie in the second half. I mean, the movie, for all intents and purposes, a large part of the finale of that movie, he is a crucial part of that. He provides the motivations for many of the characters' actions in that last part. And
Jennifer
his character,
Jason Leigh is central to the entire movie.
Well, her character is, but her performance is not. A lot of the stuff happens around her. Samuel L. Jackson is the impetus for a lot of the events. I would say most of the major events that happen in that movie. That's why I would bump him up into Best Actor. But let me talk real quickly about Adam McKay. I wouldn't, beyond your choices to replace him, I would not agree with him coming out of the Best Director category, number one, because it's actually refreshing for me to see Adam McKay in that category. I think that he brought a really new perspective to that. I think that The Big Short could have been a snooze because the subject matter involved with that is complex and it is complicated. And the fact that he was able to do it in a different way, in an entertaining way, I liked the unconventional choices that he made. That kept me entertained. And when I was watching the movie, I was thinking...
Inside Job is so much better.
I just thought that the way that he did it could have been so easy to make that stuff so dense that an audience does come out confused. And I thought he did an actually really, really good job of taking it and packaging it in a way that you can relate to, that you are able to relate to these characters. I think the tragedy of that whole situation does come through, especially in Steve Carell's last scene, when Brad Pitt turns to them in the casino and said, "Do you know what you're doing? Do you realize what you're doing by betting against the economy?"
It's a quick moment. It's a quick moment. The rest is fun.
But I'm saying that they didn't ignore the tragedy. But as far as the people that you're going to subbing in, Todd Haynes, I think that Carol and Todd Haynes, it's a safe choice.
No, it's not.
I think it's a safe choice for the Oscars.
A
personally,
lesbian drama
I really do.
is a safe choice.
No way. I'm just saying.
With
I think
two
it's
female leads. No way. It's not a safe choice.
I personally think that it's a safe choice. I like to see someone different in there, like Adam McKay. And
like
again, with Ryan Coogler, I would have a harder choice fighting against Ryan Coogler because I also do agree that he should have been nominated. Maybe not in place of Adam McKay. If I was going to make an argument against Ryan Coogler being in, if I have to, and I'm on movie fights, so I do have to, I would say that he had a little bit of an advantage. He had a little bit of a sentimental advantage for working inside of a franchise that had some attached sentiment to it, so the audience kind of came into it already a little bit on the side of the movie.
I think it's completely the opposite because people were already skeptical because this is a beloved franchise, and they're like, "What? You're continuing the storyline with a new character? What? This doesn't even make sense." He actually went in with some hatred. He had the franchise behind him, which could have really gone either direction, but because of his elevation of the franchise and continuing the story with a completely original character going down a different route, he just made it more than just a great film, an inspiring film, and not just for certain generations, for everyone.
All right, final thoughts quickly. Last thought, I'm going to leave you. Alicia, go ahead.
Well, Carol got 6 nominations in total. The 2 actress categories, screenplay, cinematography, costume design, music. Who is the person that is bringing that all together? It is director Todd Haynes. And the fact that he was so talked about for pretty much every single award in the lead up to the Oscar makes it the biggest snub. We're talking about a snub, and a snub is a surprise. It's a shock. It's the reason people go during the Oscar nominations, and they definitely did that when he was left out.
Ryan Coogler didn't just create a film, he created a cinematic experience. He had the biggest challenge out of anyone that we've mentioned here because of everything aforementioned. He also gave his characters so much new life, and he gave us hope that this franchise can be what the original Rocky was to this new generation. It hit every point of inspiration, of nostalgia, of heart, of soul, and it left you cheering, not to mention some of the best battle fighting sequence in a film we've seen, so up close and personal. It was incredible. And they didn't go the generic route of making sure, I don't want to say spoilers, but they didn't go the generic route of what it could have ended like.
Sure. And for me, I think when you say snub, I think it's beyond just the surprise factor. I think it's when somebody's rightfully award-worthy work is completely ignored, and that's what they did here with Samuel L. Jackson. It's not just the same Samuel L. Jackson performance. He's not playing himself. He really carves out an amazing character in this movie, and I would say of the 3 of them, at least some of Coogler's work and some of Todd Haynes' work were both recognized in other categories. Samuel L. Jackson completely shut out in all ways for his work in The Hateful Eight.
Did you say anything against Todd Haynes?
Todd Haynes, I did love Carol, but I would say that it's more of a niche film because it doesn't reach generations and audiences like Creed does. And same with The Hateful Eight. It's very brutal, which would turn off a lot of people. But Creed is the film for everyone, and it's a film that makes everyone feel inspired and a love of what could happen.
And why? I didn't hear you say anything against Coogler.
Ryan Coogler would be my same argument for Samuel L. Jackson. Just unfortunately, he hasn't been talked about. He's not a snub because nobody expected him to get an Oscar nomination. I wish he would. He's great, but nobody ever thought he would get Oscar nominated, unfortunately.
I thought he might.
I heard you're all. I just want to make sure I got it. Ken. Okay, Ken.
Hey, pretty clean round. And, of course, a reminder, I am monitoring hashtag Movie Fights live today, getting your tweets. Some other notable snubs in Oscar history. Selma last year, Peter O'Toole for Lawrence of Arabia, Alfred Hitchcock overall, and BB-8 for The Force Awakens. Samuel L. Jackson only nominated in 1994 for Pulp Fiction in terms of the Oscars. Some people out there jumping in. It's a great conversation. Holmesy says biggest Oscar snub has to be Walton Goggins. Hazma says biggest snub is Sicario and Ex Machina for Best Picture.
Yes.
Replaced Bridge of Spies in Brooklyn. Zane says Jason Mitchell for Straight Outta Compton.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Brian Knight rounds us up saying the biggest Oscar snub was diversity this year, which is being talked about, of course.
Yeah.
Which would help the Ryan Coogler case as well.
I wanted to pick.
Don't play that
I wanted
guy.
to pick Jason Mitchell, but I couldn't figure out who to pull out of that supporting actor
It's a
category.
tough
That's a
category.
tough category. Yeah, when you have to pull somebody out.
Based on the arguments.
Don't touch the judge, Alicia.
No touching.
Based on the arguments, it's really tough. I think you all had good points. You all had negative points on the other. I think you both were a little harsh on McKay. I think he did have a tough job and he did make it entertaining. But you also had good knocks against why Samuel Jackson was maybe more supporting, and there were other people in that movie that did it. So it did come down to you two with the directors, and that's why I asked those follow-ups, just to sort of feel where it was coming from. And I feel like your closing was a little stronger, and I think with you saying he had a tougher chance, and he's sort of the safe bet. I think it is Coogler as the snub. I'm giving it to Amy Rose. Wow! Right out the gate. Look who's in the lead. I know it was also the fact that Dan had trouble, sort of it gave you a half a point by admitting, hey, yours is a good choice. You knocked hers up, and then you did.
I can't be a total fraud.
No, I know, but I can't
Appreciate you,
ignore
Dan.
that. So kudos. All right, that was a tough one though. Round two. A lot of great movies this year, and nominations reflected that. So player two, Tom asks, what movie will win Best Picture? Now, you're making the argument, assuming what the Academy is going to vote for. This isn't what we want to win. Why would this one, if I'm making my Oscar poll at the office, which one is going to win? You guys have to fight and explain why. And Amy Rose, you're starting us off first.
It's not even close, especially when you phrase it that way. Not what we want to win, but what we think will win, and it's going to be Spotlight. There is a formula for the Academy voters. They're mostly upper-class, older white men, and they love an underdog. They love a period piece. They also love something that makes them feel good about their own morality. That is Spotlight to a T. Add an incredible ensemble from start to finish. It's airtight. There's no fat on this film. Tom McCarthy adapted this incredible screenplay on something that is a really hard part of history. It had everything, the emotional impact. It was sad. It was also inspiring that this whole journalistic world that they had to band together to do the right thing. And it's this big, big epic between the church, and it's just seen again and again. And this is, again, a real time in history. There is a formula. You can look at all of the generations of the Best Picture winners. And in the case of Mad Max and Revenant and all the other films, that could be said style over substance. This is substance. This is a meat of a film. And again, it is airtight from everything to cinematography, everything. Score was tense. It was an incredibly strong film, and the Academy is absolutely going to vote for this for Best Picture.
Dan, you're up next.
I agree with everything you said about the movie, and I wish that the Academy gave it to substance over style every time, but they don't, which is why, against what I would want to win, I'm saying that the movie that's going to win is The Revenant, because you were right. They like an underdog, and they like a period piece, and they like a movie that looks pretty, and they like a movie that has a lot of acting in it, good or bad. That movie has a lot of acting in it, so much acting in it, and The Revenant is the one that they can give it to, because the one thing that the Academy doesn't like to do is give the Academy Award to a movie that has anything important to say. They never give it to any movie that has anything actually important to say. People say, "Oh, what about Crash?" Yeah, racism is bad. That's duh. I mean, they will give important movies the Academy Award. I don't think Spotlight is quite big enough to be a important movie, so I think they're going to go with the pretty one. I think they're going to go with the one made by the guy that they liked for the movie last year, who was Inarritu with Birdman. I think they're going to go with the one that was the longest and the biggest, and I think they're going to go with The Revenant.
Alicia, what are you thinking?
Spotlight, Revenant, obvious choices. So this year is very unpredictable. You look at the sites leading up to the Oscars nominations this morning, and the movies that people were predicting for Best Picture have just varied wildly. Nobody could guess. There's no clear frontrunner this year. That's why I'm going with an unobvious choice, and I'm choosing Mad Max Fury Road. And yes, my heart does want this to win, but I also think that it could. You never know. It could come through at the end. Spotlight and The Revenant could cancel each other out. You look at the nominations that Mad Max got. It got 10 nominations, which was unexpected. People didn't realize that, but it shows how much the Academy actually really loves this film. It won Best Film at the National Board of Review. It picked up multiple other nominations, and I just think that this year is particularly tough with Best Picture. I wouldn't be surprised if something unexpected came out of the gate, and Mad Max, I think, could do it. Do it for Australia.
What do you guys think?
Listen, nothing in my heart would make me happier than Mad Max Fury Road winning Best Picture. Here's what we know about the Academy. They're old, and I guarantee you that movie confused them thoroughly. Trust me, they did not know what to make heads or tails of this movie. The craft guilds loved this movie. That's where they got all of their nominations. If Tom Hardy had popped up in Best Actor, or if Charlize Theron had maybe popped up in Best Actress, that would give me pause to say, like, okay, well, maybe this is... But that goes to show you that it doesn't have a whole lot of pull with the actors. And I think it's the craft guilds that got them all their nominations. I think it looks great, which is why George Miller got it. And they're not immune to buzz. When they hear that a movie should be nominated for Best Picture, they'll nominate it sometimes. And I think they knew, like, the young kids like Fury Road, so it's nominated. I don't think there's a chance in hell that Mad Max is going to win Best Picture. I wish there was.
I wish that The Revenant would win, actually, as well, but I don't think that it will, because precedent tells us this. There has never been a consecutive Best Picture nominee win. Like, there's never been the same amount of producers winning for one movie and then picking up Best Picture for another movie. It has never happened, ever. And I don't think it'll happen again, because they gave it to Birdman last year. And I just don't think they're going to do it again. There also hasn't been an Oscar winner that hasn't been nominated for Best Screenplay. So I don't think The Revenant will win. And Spotlight, I think, is just... It's murky. It could win, but I don't think people are as clear-cut on it as they used to. The ACE Awards are another one to look at if you like a bit of Oscar history, and I'm a nerd for that. And every single Best Picture winner has won the Best Editing at the ACE Awards, and they didn't even nominate Spotlight. So if you're just looking at precedent, then both of those films, I think, are not as clear as people think.
Mm-hmm.
You said it, the Academy are filled with older gentlemen, and that's why The Revenant is going to be too brutal for a lot of them. Sure, it has beautiful cinematography and acting and all of that, but it also has this ethereal quality that's not going to appeal to everyone. Same could be said about Mad Max. There's not really much of a plot. It's all spectacle. They want meat. You look at the history of the films, and you said they don't like to always, support, like, look at Argo, that won Best Picture, even though it got snubbed in Best Director and all these other things. So there's not necessarily a formula, but there are trades and just, how it works out. But I definitely think that with the Academy the way it is, and it's not going to continue to shift, that The Revenant is just too brutal of a film for a lot, and Mad Max is just not hardy of a film enough. And so Spotlight, it will make them feel morally good about themselves. It will also boast the incredible ensemble that it has, and Tom McCarthy, who has proven that he's a real treasure and has adapted this very important film about these young boys that have a right to be, redeemed. Story of vengeance and redemption.
See, I didn't come out of Spotlight feeling inspired. I came out of it
feeling...
Do you
have a soul?
I do, but I came out of it feeling really bummed out. Like there's like this, it was very much about the great injustice that was done to generations of young kids in America. And again, that's what lends me towards them not giving it the spotlight, because you don't see a lot of darker, non-inspirational movies that win the Academy Award for Best Picture. They don't like downers.
The Revenant is so much fun.
Well, but the Revenant, at least there's some redemption. The Revenant has as much of a happy ending as you can get, and this is an atypical year because you don't have. You don't have that one big juggernaut.
Yeah, so all bets are off. Mad Max could sneak on through.
But even last year, it was like Boyhood or Birdman. And this year, it's kind of an even playing field, it seems like. It doesn't look like
it's not.
the
It's
one movie
Spotlight.
that seems to have the momentum, other than The Martian, which I hope it isn't. I liked it fine, but it's not Best Picture. Is The Revenant? That's the one. If you look sometimes as they go, especially with the Golden Globes, they're picking up momentum. And
Golden Globes doesn't
got
mean
it.
anything.
Leo won it. The Golden Globes won the drama. It's picking up momentum, and I'm just saying on an even playing field, I'm going with the one that looks pretty and the one that doesn't have anything to say, and that's
shallow.
The Revenant. Well, the Academy is pretty shallow. I'm not saying what I want. I'm just saying I think this is what they're going to pick.
But morality is important to them.
Boyhood won the Golden Globe last year, so it's not. There's no predictor.
Last thought. That it? Anything
Sorry.
final?
Well, I'm just going to say that Mad Max is a movie. It pushes the boundaries of what
Why
a
not
film can
Spotlight?
be. So Spotlight, I'm just saying that it's not a clear winner. I think the campaign will run out of steam. I think people were talking about it early on in award season and not so much now. I'm not arguing that it's not a great film. Same with The Revenant, but I just don't think. I think these two are going to cancel each other out, and you cannot bet on either of them. So why not
Last
go
thoughts?
for unpredictable?
Both Mad Max and The Revenant were made for over $100 million, and Spotlight was made for a mere $20 million. And this campaign, they don't even need to invest in promoting it because everyone believes in this film so much. It has swept and just made people feel something, except for this guy to my left. But it's filled with everything a film should have, and especially for Academy voters, a part of our history, not a distant land away, our history. And that makes them feel good about themselves.
If I had my druthers, I would give it to either one of those two, but Spotlight doesn't have the momentum. It's not winning the awards right now. It had the buzz about a month ago. The Revenant is the one that has the buzz now. It's the number. The other one is box office. It's doing huge business at the box office. The Academy loves to give it to a movie that the people like and that they go see. I think The Revenant, again, is the prettiest. It's the longest. It's the easiest one for them to go, okay, it's impressive, check. And I think it's the least challenging, which unfortunately is a big part of what the Academy votes for
You're
Best
not
Picture.
counting the Golden Globes as being indicative of anything, right? Because it's not.
Ken, this one's really tough.
Yeah, it was a pretty clean round. I think, Alicia, you said Titanic was nominated for screenplay at the 1998 Oscars. It was not.
No, I didn't
No?
say Titanic. I
Okay.
said that it's very rare that a
Rare.
screenplay.
Gotcha. Okay. Things are flying fast and furious. I just wanted to Furiosa with that.
Furiosa.
Vegas odds. Spotlight is the favorite right now in terms of odds, 4-5.
That's
Revenant is only slightly riskier at 6-5. Mad Max coming in at 20-1. Brooklyn 50-1.
Put the house on.
Powerball.
Put the house on. Yeah, do
Brooklyn
it.
at
Trust me.
50-1 is what you want to go. Fact checking Dan's comment about the Academy voters in 2014: 94% white, 77% men, and average age of 63. I looked up
Yep.
the ACE Awards, and Andy, it's a real thing. Alicia's right.
Yes.
I just, I
And
need
they
to check.
predicted it every year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. On Twitter, a lot
Wait,
of
and
people.
what wasn't nominated? You said
Spotlight.
Spotlight wasn't nominated. Wow.
At iMark96 says Dan took the other fighters like a bear and tore them apart. So we're throwing
Not
support for
true.
Revenant. Pablo at El Marcus says, my heart tells me Mad Max Fury Road. Hashtag do it for Australia.
Yeah. Sorry, I got excited.
Aussie.
This is all going to be tough, Andy.
I know. I just got to make a call. It's about who should win. I mean, sorry, what will win.
Right.
And I heard more about the Academy and the choices from one of you. It was really close, but it was Dan. I heard a little bit more of the arguments of the old, the white. You were very close, but then there was a couple other points that did it, and then I think you're just, as much as we all want that, that's unrealistic.
I mean,
You
I
were
had-
very close with the morally good, but there was a couple more things from here. It just waited out just barely. Dan gets the point.
I hope I'm wrong. Can I say? I didn't
hard to
dislike.
argue
I
for
didn't dislike The Revenant, but
You're
I
right with the momentum is
Yeah.
is
It's what they're talking about.
what happens sometimes. All right, round 3. Predicting the winners is fun, but what or whom is the surest bet to win the Oscar this year? If we could pick any of them from all the categories, which one, if I wanted to put my money down in Vegas and go make some money, which one am I going to definitely win with? And we're starting with you, Dan.
If I'm going to Vegas and I've got my life savings, I'm putting it all on Brie Larson for Room. Since that movie came out, she has been the name and really the only name that has been realistically been in the discussion for Best Actress. She has been nominated for every industry award that she has to be awarded: Independent Spirit, SAG, BAFTA, 17 Critics Awards. She's won the Golden Globe. She won the National Board of Review. Putting aside the performance in the movie, by the way, I'm just going from strictly just from looking at what's happening. Every year going in, the Academy does this thing where they like to kind of keep people guessing on like 3 of the acting races, and then one of them is always a sure thing. The year that Monique was in Precious, everybody knew she was going to win. Last year with J.K. Simmons and Whiplash, that was a no-brainer. This year, the no-brainer is Brie Larson in the Best Actress race. Nobody has realistically mentioned another possibility.
Alicia.
Surest bet is Leonardo DiCaprio for The Revenant. This is an incredible narrative. The thing that the Academy loves is a great story, and they have a history of giving the Oscar to someone for their body of work and not necessarily just their role. That being said, he puts everything he's got into The Revenant. The whole story leading up to this, and the story is very important when it comes to Oscar campaigning, and he has been campaigning hard. Otherwise, why do you think I would have sat down with Leonardo DiCaprio to talk about The Revenant? It's all about
because
how...
you're fantastic.
No,
You're a
I'm
charming
fantastic.
person.
The only one that campaigning. But it's
Didn't Movie
been,
Mans too?
Yeah, but he's important. Like, he's got a point.
No, but he's been out there is my point. Everybody's...
I'm no one. Yeah, he's been out
You're
there.
important. That's nonsense.
You're important.
Part of the
I think
Q&A.
Scott would agree, but go ahead.
I would.
Part of the whole campaigning is to do these Q&As, like Scott moderated. They filmed that. It's all about pressing hands. He has been doing the rounds with the Academy members, and the whole story leading up to it has been A, he's never won, and this is his 6th nomination, and B, the fact that this movie was so incredibly tough to make. That it really adds to the whole story. I mean, they were shooting in terrible conditions. It was really tough. And that also being said, he has the flashiest performance out of and I would say the best performance out of the whole Best Actor category. He definitely runs rings around anyone else in that category. And that's why I say, if you are going to put money down, definitely Leonardo DiCaprio. It is his time, and he will win this year for sure.
Amy Rose, what's your sure bet?
Cinematography for Lebesky for The Revenant. You both have already talked about how stunningly beautiful this film is, and for a film like The Revenant, which is really brutal, which is why it's going to have a hard time getting some other accolades, but for this, even people who didn't like the film, and a lot of women did not, it was too savage for them, they said it was one of the most beautiful films they've seen all year. Lebesky, of course, won last year for the same thing. Of course, it's sad when Deakins and other amazing cinematographers are up against, but this was a living, breathing painting. There was nothing more beautiful. I was completely captured from beginning to end. Some of this cinematography, I literally, my jaw was dropped. It is some of the most beautiful things. I don't know how he got some of the shots. The level of difficulty that he was able to just get in there, beyond the bear, beyond the falling off with the horse of the cave, the cliff. It was just some of the most spectacular cinematography. And cinematography is supposed to completely amaze and dazzle you. And I didn't understand how he got some of those shots. And that is the true work of art, and I think Academy of any generation will agree with that it is the most beautiful, surefire Oscar of the year.
All right, guys, fight.
I think cinematography is the toughest category this year. I mean, you look at the people involved. You've got Roger Deakins nominated for a 13th time. I mean, talking about a story of someone who's never won and is long overdue, that's definitely Roger Deakins. I mean, Emmanuel Lubezki, those shots are incredible. But then you also have Ed Luckman for Carol, it's his 2nd nomination. Robert Richardson for Hateful Eight, he's won 3 Oscars. John Seal, Mad Max Fury Road, has won 1. It's just not a lock. It's not a complete lock. I hope he wins, but it's not guaranteed. Same with, unfortunately, Brie Larson. She's my personal pick. Room is one of my favorite films from last year. She's heartbreaking in her performance. But you have the wild card in that category of Jennifer Lawrence. I mean, no one really expected her to be in that category, and she is Jennifer Lawrence. She wins a lot. And I just think when it comes to that category, you can't guarantee. You also have Saoirse Ronan. There's a lot of support for her as well. So Brie Larson, I would love her to win. She's been nominated. She hasn't been winning a lot, but she's been nominated a lot. But I just don't think she's a lock. And if we're talking about putting your money down, I wouldn't put down on her, but I hope it's her.
I also wouldn't put my money down on her, because when Cate Blanchett is in a category with you, as well as all the aforementioned names, nothing is a done deal. Same with Leonardo DiCaprio, unfortunately. As you mentioned, he was nominated 6 times. I love Leo. There's no one I'd rather see take home the Oscar this year, let's be clear. But he has been snubbed for 6 times. So with the Best Actor category, it's a really unfortunate thing, but as we've talked about with The Revenant, it has so much heat right now. And the one thing that everyone is talking about is how stunningly beautiful it was. Brie, I loved The Room, but it also is a very dark film, and it's an indie film. Not everyone has seen it, and it's getting a lot of love because it's an important subject matter as well. But Jennifer Lawrence is that wild card. Even though not a lot of us love Joy, she has taken home Oscars. A lot of us don't believe she should have taken either. Not to say I don't love J-Lo. I love her, but I'm just saying the only true confirmation across the board is how beautiful The Revenant is, and people want to see that celebrated.
Jennifer Lawrence has won twice already, and
she's 25.
The Academy, the Academy is fickle. The Academy is very fickle, and there's nothing they like more than seeing a young, fresh-faced actor come up and win an Academy Award, like they did with Eddie Redmayne last year over Michael Keaton. They love an unknown story coming up, and Brie Larson is that unknown story.
Eddie
this year.
Redmayne was in a wheelchair and played a real person.
Exactly.
Spectacular.
And, but
Like
what has she lost? What major award has Brie Larson
Globes
lost?
don't count, so don't count that.
She's won and been nominated in every single category. And like I said,
know,
you're
fact check.
floating possibilities. I've yet to hear another name other than Brie Larson in that category. In Gold Derby, every single one of the experts, 20-something besides one, have picked her. I've not heard another name.
And Leonardo DiCaprio, they've picked.
But here's the thing with Leo. Leo is the Charlie Brown of the Academy Awards. I will not believe that Leo will win an Oscar until he has it in his hands. And you know what? I thought he had it sewn up until Eddie Redmayne came on the scene.
Oh, no,
because
no one's
Eddie
talking about Eddie.
No, they are. Eddie
they're
Redmayne
not.
is an important Oscar movie. The Danish
He's not
Girl
gonna win
has
twice.
the stink of Oscar
gonna win.
importance on it.
Consecutive Oscars are really hard. He's not going to
I'm
win
telling
twice.
you, I've heard that
no
he's
way.
going to be the guy
No.
that takes it away from Leo
have
this
you
year.
heard from?
I've heard that from a lot of people.
Who?
I read stuff. I read Academy Awards analysis. People are talking about Eddie
I've
Redmayne as
heard
a
it.
possibility.
I'm just
And
trying to get
not-
you angry, Dan.
I mean, I'm
because I like
talking
when you
about.
pout.
I'm talking about who am I going to go put all of my money on? It ain't Leonardo DiCaprio. I'll tell you that. Right now, I would never put all of my money on Leo winning an Oscar because it's been proven that they don't like him for some reason.
Talk about reading stuff. That is all I have read is Leonardo DiCaprio. That's every single thing I have
I'm just saying,
read.
if we're going for the sure thing, I
Leonardo
hear Eddie
DiCaprio.
Redmayne scampering up behind Leo to come grab that
You've
Oscar
also
out of his hand. DiCaprio!
You've also saed The Revenant has the most star power of anyone going right now.
But if we're
Last thoughts,
going
yeah.
Lubeski, sorry, just to talk about Lubeski again. Yes, they are talking about. But again, like I said, the Academy's fickle. He's won 2 in a row, and a lot of times when you get, especially in the technical categories,
He
like,
won twice in a row?
He's won twice. He's won the last 2,
Yeah, the
so this
last
would be
2.
3 in a
Oh,
row.
wow,
And
okay.
again, the Academy is fickle. They don't like to give it to the same person over and over and over again. And in these technical categories,
Explain
a lot
that
of
with Meryl
times.
Streep.
Well, not consecutively. How many times did she lose? She lost, 15, 16 times? She's won 3. So they historically, over time, they don't like to give it, especially multiples in a row. And a lot of times in these technical categories, when they get opened up, it's not best, it's most. Most cinematography. And Mad Max has great cinematography, but also has the most cinematography in that category. So of the 3, I'm going with the one that I legitimately have not heard another contender for.
Last thoughts?
Oh, just Leo is definitely a lock. It's been the entire Oscar campaign has been about Leo. It is his time. Academy has shown time and time again, like think about Martin Scorsese, he wins for The Departed. Did he deserve it for The Departed? Maybe not. He was a great film, but it was more for his entire body of work, and that's exactly what they're going to do with Leonardo DiCaprio. He's paid his dues, he's ready, and he's done a bloody good
thought.
job.
They don't even have to campaign for the cinematography for Lubeski because it is the most beautiful thing ever, and everyone says that. It is on the top of all the ratings. That hammer makes me nervous. And as we mentioned, Brie's getting heat from a lot of the small indie things, but not the big awards contention. And Leo has been snubbed 6 times. The only sure bet is Emmanuel Lubeski.
Time!
Okay.
Time. Ken, anything to add?
Looking at the odds, Brie Larson, Room 1-3, Leonardo DiCaprio, The Revenant 1-5. I couldn't find the odds on the best cinematographer, and I looked at so many betting websites. I now have to go to a gambling addiction meeting tomorrow. And Alicia is right. Only 2 actresses and actors have won the consecutive awards in history. That's a very hard thing to do. On Twitter, a lot of people like Paul Bly saying they fully agree with Alicia Malone for DiCaprio finally winning the best Oscar actor. Hashtag Leo needs an Oscar. Our friend Meredith Loftus, and Magoo at Magoo's Reviews say they both put everything on Inside Out for Best Animated Feature. I also fact-checked the biggest fact put forth in this round, and it is true. Alicia, you were very important.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, very true.
I agree with that.
This one, this one was a race. You were all in the lead at a certain point. I'll be honest. But here's what at the very end, it came down to they both really had interesting facts that sort of knocked you out because you were leading for me. It's like, wow, these are both pretty tough. Yours is kind of a sure bet, but the fact that he's won twice, the fact that his competition has so many other wins and in there knocked that one out. So sadly, you fell closely. You were leading, and he fell. So it came down to you two. And then I was leading with Leo, but he made a very good point. You can't bet on Leo given the standings, and I think
That's why you can bet.
And I think you gave me a better contender who's up against Leo, which is Redmayne, than you did give me Jennifer Lawrence and Joy. There's no way she's winning. I don't know where that came from, but you're right. The Redmayne train is definitely running faster than the J-Law train.
Yeah.
She said Blanchett, so if you had said Blanchett, it might have been a tie for. But I think based on the arguments there, Dan gets the point. But very close.
The Redmayne train has left the station. Believe you me.
You're the first person I've heard talk about Eddie
I've heard
Redmayne.
lots of people talk about
Sarah.
Eddie
Dan's
Redmayne.
heard things. Dan's heard things.
Heard things.
Trust me, put your money on Leo.
It's a
Trust
sucker bet.
It's hard to
I hope.
But I'm just saying, they got 40 more years to break his heart before they got to give it to him like they did Scorsese.
Round 4. And now after the fights, we can talk about whether he deserves it for this one. Fan Nick Graves at Real Slim Spidey asked us on Twitter, what category is missing from the Oscars and who should have won it? So if we could add, say, Best Kiss, like the MTV Movie Awards, what would it be? What's the category we want? And we're starting this round with you, Leisha.
Oh, the category that is sorely missing from the Oscars, and a category that many directors have been campaigning to get in with the Oscars, including people like Woody Allen, who wrote a letter about this, is casting director. The casting director is one of the most important jobs on a film. And if you watch, if you're interested and you're a nerd like me, and you watch Casting By, which is a great documentary about casting directors and the importance of them, then you'll see these people who, plucked Brando and Pacino and De Niro from the stage and put them on screen. And a lot of directors will come out and say that they would not have been able to do their film without the casting director. So I would say Best Casting Director, and if I had to choose one for this year, it would definitely be Francine Maisler, who directed for The Revenant. But not only that, have a listen to her incredible body of work. She also did The Usual Suspects, Milk, Moneyball, 50-50, Mud, 12 Years a Slave, and then this year alone, she did the casting for The Big Short, Ex Machina, the Black Mass, Sicario, Creed, and The Revenant. And she is the lady who is going to take Leo to Oscar glory. She cast him perfectly in this role, and I think that, she had such a great hand in this. She's worked with Alejandro Inarritu several times before on Babel, on Birdman as well. She did the casting for, so I think that she deserves the Oscar, and there should be a Best Casting Director category.
Amirose, what are you picking?
I'm picking Best Stunt by a leading actor or actress. This is a thing that should be addressed from many years back. There are people, and my winner for this would be Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible 5. There are so many actors that do their own stunts, and this is not even being talked about. And the level of just fear and difficulty and putting their lives on the line a lot of the times are not even addressed. And this could go even further about dressing the whole stunt team with this Oscar. And I would like to not make it separate to a man or woman. I would like to acknowledge all of them. Leo actually slept in a horse. He actually got in a horse. These kind of things should be acknowledged because, a lot of the times these actors are on, the line of debating whether they want to do their own stunts or not, and then someone else, but you can feel it. When someone's actually from beginning to end doing their own stunts, there's a level of passion that is not felt with the stunt double. Not to mention all the effects. Practical effects are where it's at, and it really helps elevate a film. So I think we should acknowledge the brave actors and actresses doing those stunts.
Dan, what's your category?
I would add a second Best Picture category, and I think it's woefully underdue, which would be Best Picture under $10 million. This would be the only movies eligible for this category would be movies that were made for $10 million or less. And I know a lot of people say like, oh, well, that's what the Independent Spirit Awards are for. Well, nobody watches them. And nobody knows who won them. And what this would do would be to give smaller movies a national and international stage to be recognized. For example, just kind of postulating in my head, if this category existed in the Oscars today, in this category for Best Picture, you might have Tangerine, Dope, 99 Homes, The Gift, and What We Do in the Shadows, which are great small films that nobody's ever heard of, and they fall through the cracks. They fall through the cracks on these major categories. They're never even considered. I guarantee you Tangerine was never in the running for a Best Picture nomination. It's too small. The Academy Awards give a nominal selection, maybe, to these super indie films, maybe in the Best Picture category or in an acting category or two. And this is a huge subset of movies that are getting no exposure from the Oscars or even on a national stage. They're kind of relegated to the smaller award shows. And I think it's beyond time for the Oscars to set aside a category specifically for these smaller movies because they deserve a wider audience.
They do get it. I mean, because you have Room, which was made for $6 million, and Brooklyn made for $10 million, and they're both in the Best Picture category. I like that they're all given an even playing field so that you can get these indie films mixed with blockbusters. And Oscars are actually the place where they give more of a shot to these films. You know, you didn't see a Star Wars in the Best Picture. You see a Room in Best Picture. And I think I love that the indie films and I love the Independent Spirit Awards, but that's what makes the Independent Spirit Awards so special is because they focus on that and they have that budget restriction. And then the best stunts, I mean, Tom Cruise is amazing. I don't know who else you'd put in the category. Who else did big stunts?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
But I don't know if that was
Stone did her own stunts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. Tom Hardy did his own stunts. There's a lot.
I don't know. Silence.
Okay, so for yours, I love indies. We're very, very vocal about this, but by trying to make a separate category to support indies, it almost lessens them. They should be held against other big blockbusters, not because of their budget, but because of the content, because they're an amazing film. Beyond just Room and the other ones we mentioned, there's also Mustang, Son of Saul. There's a bunch of indies on the list being nominated for Oscars this year. Casting is something that nerds, cinephiles like, but the general public audience does not. They do not care about the casting. They care about the cast. They care about the celebrity. They care about the star.
You have costume design. You have editing.
A lot of people are bored with those topics as well.
Technical awards. It should be in the technical awards because casting director. I think it might even be one of the only, or at least the few heads of department in a film that is not recognized at the Oscars. And apparently the Directors Guild doesn't like it because they don't like the term director, casting director. So that's why they don't really like having it in there. But it should absolutely be nominated alongside all the other technical awards.
They just don't care.
Best sound editing.
But with stunts, it's like you put your life on the line for it, and that is really exhilarating and really exciting. And the general public, if you actually went down actors by actresses, you would see that a lot more do stunts than they want, and that's just not general knowledge that they're aware of. And that exhilaration factor would actually breathe new life into the Academy Awards as well, because it's exciting. And action films and everything else with choreography and stunts, that is a very exciting part and a very important part of just genre films in general.
Should be stunt director.
Well, here's my trouble. Like with casting I agree there are smaller categories: editing, costume design. These are very palpable. Quantifiable categories. You can look and you can see the costume design. You can look and you can see how the movie's edited. You can look and you can see how the casting is just like, okay, so you went to the director, but doesn't the director also decide who he wants in the movie? It's a very kind of. It's hard to get my head around exactly what a casting director does or why they need their own category. I'm sure there are casting awards.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
Just look at the Ken can bring up Woody Allen's open letter to the Hollywood Reporter, where actually I've got a bit of it, which he says, I owe a big part of the success of my films to this scrupulous casting process, which I must say, if left to my own devices, would never have happened.
I'm just not sure how you judge that. And like you said, they all work on multiple films. Is it for one film? Is it for all the films? It's very hard for me to figure out how you would quantify that. For the stunt one,
Same with sound mixing.
If you said, well, but there are
Sound
some,
editing.
but you can at least listen to a movie and say like, oh, I hear the sound in this. You can't look at a movie and go like, oh, I see exactly who the casting director cast in this and who the director cast in this and who did she suggest them or did they suggest?
For sure.
It's just very unquantifiable
Something
to
like
me.
Michael Fassbender as Steve Jobs, which she also
right.
did, by
so
the way.
Who did
She
Danny
did.
Boyle want him or did she cast him?
She cast him. Yeah.
Right. So the director didn't have any say in his casting
No,
whatsoever.
of course they have a say.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's
The
very murky waters.
The director has a say
is.
in the costume design. The director has a say in the score. The director has a say in the editing. The director has a say in the cinematography.
But the general
The
public
director has a
doesn't
say
care.
in the stunts.
Right.
The director has a say in everything. So you can't just separate it like that.
But I'm also going to be the cynical guy, and I agree. The general public, they're going to see it, and it's just going to be another category in the middle of the movie. They're like, I don't know what
It
that
doesn't
is.
matter.
And
It's about
they put the chips on.
honoring.
Here's my problem with the stunt one. If you'd said best stunt ensemble, I'd be all for it. But that sounds like an MTV award. I don't need Tom Cruise to get an Oscar for hanging onto a plane. It's
I
great.
said all
He was on the
encompassing.
side of every building in America. That's his reward. He got paid $30 million. That's his reward. And it's just like there might be like 2 nominees every year. If
To be
it's just
clear-
for a star to win an award, I don't need another star to win a nothing award.
You didn't like Mission Impossible?
I liked Mission Impossible, but I didn't look at Tom Cruise and go like, that deserves an Oscar. I was like, that's great for Tom Cruise, but he got paid $50 million to do it. So that's it for me. That's his reward. Where I'm coming from with mine is these movies need more attention. The Academy, when they saw that animated features were not getting the attention they deserved, created a Best Animated Feature category not that long ago for this specific purpose, because there were full-length animated features that were not getting recognition in the Best Picture race. They got their own category. What I'm saying is, why not do that with these small, under $10 million indies? Because the Oscars it's not like the Independent Spirit Awards, it's not like the Golden Globe. The Oscars is the premier stage for movies. When you get an Oscar nomination, people sit up and notice. And I just think that
What's your award?
they're being underserved.
I want this for all of you. What's your award called?
Best casting director.
Best casting director?
Best stunt work. I mean, at the beginning of my argument, which I'd like to say, is that I said that it should be all-encompassing for stunts. I think that the general public doesn't like casting, doesn't like editing, doesn't like all those other technical awards. So by having the star power in that, but you could say it encompassing stunt work for a film, including the actor, including the coordinator, including the director. That's an important aspect of film that elevates it that we are not acknowledging, especially the risk factor. It's really dangerous to do a lot of these stunts. Look at Mad Max.
But Tom Cruise would get the award, right?
I'm just saying that was a good example.
I just think
Mr.
that'd be kind of
Cynical.
insulting to his nameless
And you're
stunt person that
diluting-
he gets to go back up there again. And this is for the guy you don't know.
And you're diluting indies by
I'm
not
not
letting them
diluting
stand
it.
against
It's
the big boys.
opposite. And I'm not saying, by the way,
You didn't give me a name for what you're talking
it would probably be either best independent feature or best small budget picture. Or
Yeah,
or
because
something along
independent
that
is
matter.
impossible to quantify.
But exactly, that's why I'm putting a
As we
number on
know.
it. But I'm also not saying like you kind of said you're like, oh well, Room and Carol are in the best. Those are the 2 nominal slots that you get for under 10. Brooklyn, I'm sorry, that you get for under $10 million films. Here's what I'm saying: I'm not disqualifying them for Best Picture. If they can compete in the Best Picture race, that's great. All I'm saying is that this is a category that specifically gives a spotlight, no pun intended, to these
Best
smaller films that are not being served right now and that deserve some attention.
Spotlight's 20 million.
And I think,
by the way.
yeah.
All right, I heard enough. I'm trying to listen to some stuff, and I think I heard enough. Ken,
Wow, this is
I want to keep it
great.
going.
Yeah, Casting By is a great documentary.
Yay.
You should all check it out. I fact checked that Leo did sleep in an animal carcass.
That's right.
But
A
whatever,
real carcass?
whatever.
Wow.
Mark
That's a big
Hamill
deal.
slept in a real tauntaun in Empire Strikes Back. A lot of you active on hashtag Movie Fights Live. At Beast Mode Daniel says catering. Matthew Nixon says location manager. But some great show. Also, Felipe Flores says best practical effects. Miss Movie says best choreography, fight, dance, stage, and all of that. At Norma_OTT says best stunt actor, but not best stunt by leading actor. Abigail says best ensemble cast.
All right, we get it, Ken.
A lot of those. I'm trying to give you time to choose.
Yes,
And,
I'm good. All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. This was not tough. It just was. I don't like any of them, to be perfectly honest. I think you all wiped each other out with good reasons. So I based it on who knocked out the others the strongest, and I think it was Dan, just because I think it is true, because I don't believe, and Ritu didn't say I want Leonardo in my movie.
They work together. That's
Right,
the
so,
point.
but he had a very strong point, and then you also had a point of you sort of had to change your answer because he made a good
was in
point
the
of
beginning.
he made a good point of you don't want to give Tom Tom Cruise the stunt award for the guy who does the stunt. So for those 2 points alone, I was with you though, because he does feel like he's lessening the impact of winning. So that was very close.
Yeah.
But because he had both punches, Dan gets the point.
Galaxy Quest 5.
Because he didn't agree with
Oh, poor Galaxy.
But that was a tough one. 5. Round 5. Like many, we were all affected, obviously, by David Bowie. This will be, let's celebrate so many fun things he did. We didn't pick best movie for David Bowie. We wanted to try something a little different. This came from Paul Critope on Twitter, who asked us, which I imagine at some point they have to have done, they're going to do this, who should play David Bowie in the biopic? We're starting with you, Amirose. It's a huge loss for us, for music and for movies. He's done a lot of good movies, and we can talk about some of that on After the Fight. But let's recast him. If someone were to play the legend on screen, who would you pick?
Yeah, it's impossible for me to separate my love and respect and admiration for Bowie without having great care in selecting an actor that could really handle it, and mine is Dane DeHaan. Dane DeHaan is probably the best young actor out there today. Not only does he look at that uncanny resemblance, like the White Duke, it's crazy. He can also sing. He has a very large, commanding presence, and he could really transform. He's a chameleon. Every role he's completely different, and it's very important to me because we are in an age where actors can do everything, and I wouldn't want someone that can actually handle the music from Bowie, because why would we have someone that dub it when we can have someone do everything? And he is one of the best actors, and I think he could really do him justice. Not to mention, he's a huge Bowie fan, and I want someone with that utmost care and respect for his legacy to represent him.
Dan.
Some would say he's not a chameleon, he's a green goblin. Sorry, Spider-Man joke. Okay, I'm going with Ezra Miller. You will soon see him in the DC movies as the Flash. I think he's got the look to do it, and I think more importantly, I think that when actors take on a role, and David Bowie is a very imposing role, that would be a very imposing role for any actor to play. I think if you're able to draw on your real life experience, I think that would help. And I think that Ezra Miller and David Bowie have a lot in common, just kind of personally. A lot of David Bowie's mystique in the 70s, which is kind of when I would probably do this movie during kind of the height of the mystical Bowie time. He kind of had this fluid sexuality going on, and I think that that's a trait that Ezra Miller shares in common. He's very publicly talked about the fact that he doesn't identify with particularly straight or gay, and I think that the fact that plays a role in his real life, I think he could kind of harness some of that, bring it to the role of Bowie, plus the fact that I think people are going to start thinking of him as the Flash, and he's been fantastic in movies like Perks of Being a Wallflower and We Need to Talk About Kevin. I think he's got the chops to do it, and I think he'd be an interesting choice for the role.
Alicia, who are you picking?
Talk about interesting choices. I'm going with Tilda Swinton. Now, there's been rumours about this one, and she has said that it's not going to happen. But if we're talking about who we would like to be in a David Bowie biopic, I'm definitely choosing her. I mean, not only does she look a lot like him, they're both tall and pale and blonde, and she's very androgynous looking. She's also a brilliant actress. She's someone who could pull this off. Plus, she's good friends. She was good friends with David Bowie, so she has personal insight into his life. She said about David Bowie, he looked just like me and looked like someone from the same planet as I did. And I think she has the acting chops that could play him. And she has that look where she could play a younger version, she could play an older version, she could play him right throughout his life. I think she is an incredible force on screen. And then if you think of people like, Hilary Swank in Boys Don't Cry and Cate Blanchett as Bob Dylan and I'm Not There, it's not a completely out of the reach to say Tilda Swinton, and I would love to see her do that role.
What do you guys think?
I love Ezra Miller. I think he's a fantastic actor. He does not look anything like Bowie, and that's kind of a thing. I mean, it's important to try to represent who he was, and part of his charisma and his energy and his look is who he was. Those are synonymous. It's important. I love Tilda Swinton, but can she sing in a baritone? No. Bowie, that's very, very important for her. And
do the high notes.
It'd be really high. And again, it's important. You can tell when someone is lip singing in a film, especially about how impactful his music was for generations. And Dane DeHaan is that chameleon. He can be look older, he can be the White Duke, he can be Aladdin Sane, he can be all of those things. He encompasses exactly who Bowie represents. And also he's, Metallica film, his love for music, his ability to sing and transform himself, he's just leagues above everyone else in the conversation.
He was terrible in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, though. I mean, I'm
That
sorry.
movie was terrible,
but I cannot
Dan.
discount
That
the
movie
movie.
was
I agree.
terrible.
The movie was terrible, but he was awful.
They all were.
In that
Jamie
movie.
Foxx, they all
Jamie
were.
Foxx was terrible. Andrew Garfield wasn't bad. Emma Stone wasn't bad. But it's hard for me to put all my weight behind him because I've seen him be good.
Have you seen Place
I've
Beyond
seen
Pines?
him be. I've seen him be terrible though. I'm just saying. I know that he's capable of terrible performances. Tilda Swinton. It's an interesting choice, absolutely. But I'm afraid, number one, I agree. When somebody's lip syncing in a movie, you can tell, and I think she'd kind of be forced to do it because I don't know if she could get the voice down to the Bowie range. And secondly, like you mentioned, Hilary Swank, she was playing a transgender person in that movie, and Cate Blanchett was one part of that movie. She played a part of as Dylan, but there were other actors who took on that role. And I think that after a while, I think it'd be an interesting choice, but I think sustained across the whole movie, it might come off as stunt casting.
I disagree. I think it would if she's
I feel like
not
it
a
would
good
get
actress,
distracting
but
after a while.
She's a really good actress, so I think that's where it's not stunt casting. It'd be stunt casting if you cast someone who is, but by the casting director, who's very important, cast someone who does not have the acting chops, and then it would be a gimmick. It would be like, okay, we're going to get people in the theatre, but I think people would be really interested to see this choice, and then once they did go to the theatre, she could really back that up. I actually haven't heard Dane DeHaan sing, so that was going to be my thing. Is like I've never heard him sing.
You can sing.
Ezra Miller. Both of these choices I just think are a little too young, and they would play Bowie in a specific time frame. But I think Bowie, something that's so interesting about him is how he moved with the times, how he went across decades. And I think you need someone who can play an entire character and not just a specific part of his life.
You saw Jeff Bridges in Tron, right? I'm just
Terrible.
saying it can be done visually, and
Badly.
the most important thing of Bowie is the music. That's number one, and the ability to have that transformation. Things can be done with movie magic and makeup and all of that, but you need someone to capture his essence, and the only one we've talked about
But
here
I
that
don't
will
think
is Dane
anyone
DeHaan.
can. I don't think anyone can beat Bowie. I'd
Well, of
rather
course
hear
not.
Bowie's music himself. I'd rather see someone lip sync and have Bowie's
wouldn't.
music than hear someone do a poorer version of Bowie. Bowie was so special in his tone and his voice that I think with a movie without it and someone trying to be Bowie, I just don't
But
want
look at Joaquin Phoenix
I
and
don't
Walk
wanna-
the Line. It would have not been as powerful if he wasn't singing and playing himself.
Yeah,
It's
I don't
important.
think that was
It takes you out of the
same
picture.
thing.
I just don't know if I've never seen Dane DeHaan kind of do that. Like Bowie's so, I mean, just out there. And Dane DeHaan's always kind of this guy, very kind of sneery.
Don't
and
bring Goblin again in this.
I'm not bringing Goblin. I'm just saying like that's kind of his go-to. Hey Peter, what's up? I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say Peter. I'm just saying like I haven't
Can't let
seen
it go.
from him the ability to just be like I'm David Bowie. Like that is an outsized personality, and he's so kind of broody. And
Have you
even
seen
in the
Metallica?
even in the Metallica movie, he's just kind of
good.
he's running. He's good, but he's not like rock star. He's still
Give
kind
him
of
the
like
chance.
you
He'll
know.
be a rock star.
I just haven't seen anything from him that says that he could turn that page. And again, with Tilda, I just think it would be distracting. I think it would take away from it. I think people would be talking more about her than they were about the movie. Whereas I think with Ezra Miller, you're going to get somebody who, would be more immersed in the part, and you're not so much distracted by the casting, and you're much more wrapped up in the story.
One line each, quickly, go.
I think that the casting would be an interesting line to get people in. But once you're in, Tilda Swinton can absolutely transform. She's shown that in her career. You would totally forget that it's her. She would become Bowie. And I think that would be so fascinating to see. And I'd love to see an actress of her caliber take on this role.
Dane DeHaan can do anything, and he absolutely looks the most like him out of anything we've talked about. Not to mention he can sing his own songs. He's very passionate about the impact that Bowie had on his music, and that's very, very important. And I just think that he could capture the essence. Every role he has done has been spectacular, and he's not had something like this, which will just make us believe in him even more about his complete vast range.
Ken, I hope you've been listening to some Dane DeHaan over there while Dan wraps up.
Not every role has been spectacular. And I don't have anything against Dane DeHaan personally. He's just never shown me anything that says that he could be capable of playing such a role. I think Ezra Miller is a very versatile actor. I think he's able to do the part, and I think that he would make for a more complete movie about Bowie than a movie about Tilda Swinton playing Bowie.
He doesn't look anything like him, though.
Ken.
Pretty clean round, obviously. A lot of just opinions put out there. Paul Blythe on Twitter says, wow, Alicia Malone has become the Leonardo DiCaprio of this movie fights battle. Hashtag Alicia needs a win. A lot of people throw in their support, though, behind Alicia's choice. Kimber and Tom hated the idea of a Bowie pick until Alicia Malone said Tilda Swinton, but a lot of people choosing people like Cumberbatch. Eddie Izzard's names popped up, like Kobe Miller's tweet about that.
Okay, so there's one thing I wish I'd heard from you.
What's that?
That's what David Bowie probably would have loved. Because
Yeah.
he was so weird like that. But I didn't hear that from you. Doesn't mean you're out, but that's what I just kept waiting for you to say.
I've never spoken to the guy. So
Yeah, but I mean, that was
I don't know
clearly, I
what
mean, that
he
feels
wants
like
to
that's
say.
his sort of shtick, because he would want to do something out there like that,
Yeah,
right?
so-
He'd want his biopic to be played by her
I mean,
or
I don't
something.
think he ever expected to have a biopic.
Totally, but it just seems like his quality. But aside from not hearing that, based on the arguments, Amy Rose had some really good ones about the singing, and it's important, and it's about the music, and that's really where I kept coming back to. But you had a lot to say about the age, and I think both of them had stronger arguments as to the fact that he can't sing, and he's younger, sort of decent choice, doesn't look like him. There was just too many piling against you, Dan, so it came down to these two. You made a good point about the age. You made a point that you can go through the whole his whole career. I gotta give it to Alicia anyway. I think Alicia did a more interesting choice, and I think even though you didn't say it, you implied it enough that sort of feels more David Bowie-esque. Let's give it. Alicia gets the point. Good choice. Round 6.
It's hot in here.
It is hot. Turn off the air
Turn
at a
off
certain
the AC.
time.
Yeah.
Trying to get that fixed. All right, this is a depressing ending of our episode because we lost another great one. He's right here, the Sheriff of Nottingham himself, Alan Rickman, Mr. Hans Gruber. Really, what a solid actor. So many good roles. Really sad we lost him. And Nova Striker 6 asked us the question. I think this is going to be the toughest one we've had. What is the best Alan Rickman performance? And there are a lot, and we know if Nick Mundy was here, what he'd say.
Yep.
But we're not. There's more than just that role, and I want to hear what you all pick. Dan, what are you going for?
I could have picked 6 or 7, and I might have picked 1 or 2 that you're going to hear. Who knows? But the one that I ended up with is in Galaxy Quest. This was a movie that, to be honest, I didn't find until very shortly ago. I'd always heard about it, but I'd never actually seen it. And when I watched it, what struck me is, first of all, to cast Alan Rickman in that part, like to be like, you're going to wear the thing, the headdress thing, and you're going to be like the fact that he took it on, first of all, was kind of like a bit of a risk for him. And secondly, I love the fact that he's just this pathetic guy. He the first thing you see is him staring in a mirror like, how did I come to this? I did Richard III. And the fact that you trace his character's arc from this guy who's cursed. He's cursed by this stupid TV show, and it haunts his life. And through this kind of grand adventure, he finds that like this was kind of his purpose in life altogether. And here's the main thing: is that it is an Alan Rickman comedic role. He plays comedy, and you don't see that a lot from Alan Rickman. You get the serious Alan Rickman, but it's hilarious when he starts freaking out. He's like, "I'm out of here." And Tim Allen says, "The show must go on," and he just goes, "Damn you," and goes back in. It's like there are so many sides to Alan Rickman. But Galaxy Quest was a side that I hadn't seen him do before. So that's why I'm going with Galaxy Quest.
Alicia, what are you picking?
I'm going with one of his iconic characters. Of course, he has many, but I'm choosing Snape from the Harry Potter series. The role that he
Are you
played.
picking a movie?
No, I'm picking the
You
the
get
character.
every movie, you got to pick a movie.
I thought we're doing best character. Then
Best
I'll
Alan
go
Rickman
with,
performance.
I'll go with the final Harry Potter
Okay,
film.
thank you.
Because this is the moment when he turns from what you expect as a villain to a hero. And this is such a complex character, and then not to mention an extremely heartbreaking death scene as well. And this is a role that you need at the level of actor as Alan Rickman to pull off, because this guy has so many shades to him, so many different layers, incredibly intelligent. He also has some of the best lines in the movie and some of the best lines in the entire series, and someone that is so uniquely tied to him. You cannot imagine anyone else playing that character. Plus, the final film in Harry Potter was just a really nice turn for his character, and you felt like he had his moment, and he was redeemed of anything you may have thought about him throughout the whole series, anything you may have expected him. He's a villain that you end up loving, and that is such a hard trick to pull off on screen, and that's why I'm going with Snape.
Amy Rose.
Save the best for last. You displayed my argument perfectly when you grabbed the little Rickman doll and you said Hans Gruber. That's because Alan Rickman
I
is
said
synonymous.
Sheriff of Nottingham first.
Well, because that's the doll. That's the doll. The point is, Hans Gruber is synonymous with him. This is not just a role. He helped redefine what's possible with villains. What he did with Die Hard, he literally made the villain just as compelling as the hero. That was never done before, and he really redefined that you don't have to be a mustache-twirling villain. You can be multi-layered and complex and menacing, and that was the first film he was ever on, and his best performance ever. That was when people really were like, who is this guy? Before it was just TV. It's impossible to not define this as the role of a lifetime. And again, beyond just Galaxy Quest, which I loved, and Snape, which I love, this was the definition of the change of a movement and what's possible. It's more than just one role. It's so much larger than that. Hans Gruber for the win.
Hans Gruber!
I mean, how do you argue against these two?
It's
Or
really hard.
how do you argue against probably 3 or 4 other roles that Alan Rickman
Yeah.
played? It's the fact that he was such a great actor, but what sets Galaxy Quest apart for me is that starting with Die Hard and Harry Potter too, till the very end, the one thing I knew that Alan Rickman could play was menacing and dark and a great villain. He was a great villain, and he played a great villain in so many movies. Galaxy Quest showed you a different side of him. He didn't play that part that you would expect him to play. He showed us a different side of himself as an actor. He wasn't Hans Gruber. He wasn't Professor Snape. He inhabited this character a lot more fully, and it was a much more down-to-earth character. He had the advantage of being like, it's so much fun to play a villain. And so in Die Hard and with Snape, he had the advantage of being able to go a little theatrical, and that's what made those performances great. For me, what made the Galaxy Quest performance so great was that he wasn't able to do that, and he had to play it much closer to the vest, and he had to play what I think is a character that had a lot more going on. The fact that you know, he was just this guy, I just felt so bad for him. I felt such sympathy for Alan Rickman, which I didn't expect to do. With Snape, I actually wouldn't pick Half-Blood Prince or Deathly Hallows 2 as his best one. I would have picked Half-Blood Prince because knowing what you know, when you go back to that movie, he plays that role double ways, so many ways. Like, that's the one that I actually like watching him in the most. And yeah, I mean, you know, Die Hard is a great performance, but I'm going with the one that I think showed more of the kind of range that he has. I know he can do what he did in Die Hard and Harry Potter. I didn't quite know that he could do what he did in Galaxy Quest.
Most characters are pretty black and white. You've got the villain, you've got the good guy. As Snape, he was so deliciously grey, and the way that he teased out the character slowly. You couldn't go back and watch a Half-Blood Prince in the same way if you didn't have that final movie, if you didn't know what happened with his character and that final twist and turn. And such a complex character, something that we don't normally see in these young adult or children's books, whatever you want to call it. And he added such gravitas to the entire cast. That voice, I mean, the way he was like, Potter, you know, he's so great. And he has his big moment in the last film, and that completely changes your view on the entire series. And this is a character he's been playing for 10 years. And for the final turn to change your thoughts about the character that he's played for previous, you know, however many films or 10 years, it's such a big leap, and it's something that only Alan Rickman could have done.
Again, these are just isolated good roles. Like this, Hans Gruber is the difference of what helped define why action films were better after 1988. Dennis Hopper, Speed, all these people have talked about how they were inspired by Rickman's rendition of Hans Gruber. It's just unbelievable what he was able to do there, and to actually be on screen, and each line was poetry from his lips. He would just completely capture you, and became the first menacing villain, not just someone that were like, oh, he's bad. And Galaxy Quest, yes, it was funny, but the reason why you probably liked it more is because he was so good in this role, and people wanted to hire him because he was so good at being the villain. Not this mustache twirling is always the metaphor compared to it. He was layered and intricate and amazing. He is Hans Gruber. That is Alan Rickman.
I think Hans Gruber would actually be a reason why you wouldn't cast him in that role, because that is the complete opposite of Hans Gruber. He's this pathetic, weak guy. He has no control over his life. He finds that throughout the movie. If we were talking about most influential Alan Rickman performance, of course, but I'm giving you the performance that I thought showed me the most of what he could do as an actor, and showed me the most capability, the range that I haven't seen before. He played tragedy, he played comedy, and yeah, again, I think J.K. Rowling a little bit of the credit with Snape's character. It certainly informed his performance a little bit. I think there was a little bit less of that on Galaxy Quest. I mean, Snape had a very tragic backstory that he was able to pull from. I think Galaxy Quest was a lot more of him finding that character and doing something a little bit different than he'd done before.
The question was best performance, though, and that's Hans Gruber.
Well, I think it's Galaxy Quest.
Last thoughts, Alicia?
In terms of a role that really has it all, talking about emotion, talking about a tragic backstory, like you said, talking about, the fact that he always loved Lily and he has that passion inside him. Snape encompassed everything that we loved about Alan Rickman and everything that he did so well, and it gave him a chance to show off all sides of his character, not just the black and white, the good guy or the bad guy, but somewhere in between. And that is so incredible that he managed to pull that off so well.
Ooh. Why do I do this to myself, Ken?
First of all, Amirose, it's not a doll. It's an action figure for adult collectors. Come on.
Sorry, Ken, I love you.
2014, Den of Geek read a Alan Rickman Best Performance article, and they came up with the number one choice was Truly, Madly, Deeply, 1990s movie.
Good one, too.
Look, it's hard to choose. Everyone on Twitter is pretty much backing all three of you, and I think Cujo Chase, at Cujo Chase, said it best. Why do we have to choose one?
We shouldn't.
Beautiful.
We definitely shouldn't.
But
Sadly,
we did it to ourselves and Andy.
Cutting out Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, just eliminate me.
Because I think you made a very valiant effort, and you're already going to the finals, Dan,
Yeah.
so don't be too grumpy. But it really came down to Snape and Hans Gruber. I think you both made some amazing points. I think Amirose got a little hung up on just how awesome he was without giving me too much. You repeated yourself with the mustache twirling, and he was an inspiration. But I feel like Alicia gave me a little bit more as to the so much you could pull from the horror and the comedy, and you wouldn't have these without that. And there was just a little bit more of how complex his character was in this versus what I think he did as most iconic performance.
We did find the genres, though. I said.
Best iconic performance, but when you broke it down, I got a little bit more from Alicia. I got to give Alicia the point for Snape.
That means I got to do the speed
Very
round.
surprising. Amirose, though, wow, you were fantastic, and I hope you'll come back. That sadly means, though, Alicia, right, if I'm calculating this right?
3-2.
Alicia has 2, Dan has 3, Amirose got the 1, but fantastic. Really good first fight against 2 amazing fighters, so thank you, and kudos, good job. Please come back, yes?
Yes.
Did you have fun, I hope?
So much fun.
I need you to help me now with the speed round to decide who takes it out of these 2.
Scary.
All right, Ken, we're going to do the speed round.
Yep.
But before we do, I want to once again thank our sponsor, Loot Crate, JT. That's right. Get some awesome gear and support this podcast in the process by visiting lootcrate.com/moviefights. Ken has some amazing of gear, which he showed you earlier. I mean, that Galaxy Quest pendant couldn't be better, and the timing, I'm so proud we have that. But that's exclusive Loot Crate items that you get exclusively each month if you're a member. So go to lootcrate.com/moviefights, sign up, and you'll save 10% on a new subscription by using the code MovieFights. Don't forget the code MovieFights. Do it again before January 19th at 9 p.m. to subscribe and get the Invasion Crate, which has Alien, Space Invaders, and the Fifth Amendment. Maybe it's a multi-pass, Dan. What do you think?
I hope so.
Multi-pass. That'd be pretty cool. Anyway, please subscribe. Go check that out. So go and get your own crates. And thank you so much for sponsoring, and thank you so much for supporting us, guys. All right, it is time for the speed round.
Take him, Alicia.
I should have lost. I should have lost this one. I hate the speed round, especially against
Should have
you.
lost.
come on.
Well, you can forfeit.
Don't
No.
Don't forfeit.
No.
Come on. I want you to be here. I'm sure she wants to get there.
I got
All right.
this.
All right.
Got this.
Gang
Number
face.
1, speed round. You guys know how this goes. I'm not going to waste time explaining it. Excluding his Academy Award nominated film from this year, what's the best film from Academy Award nominee Adam McKay?
Oh,
Anchorman.
Anchorman.
I heard Dan first. Or you heard Alicia
I
first?
heard Alicia
I heard
first.
Alicia.
You
I
heard
heard
Alicia?
me
Okay.
first.
JT? Okay, sorry. They all heard you. So Dan's got to pick somebody else. We had
Okay.
4 sets of ears, Dan. Don't get too grumpy.
All right.
Alicia got Anchorman.
Jesus. How do you pick one where there's only like one?
That's
hang
not
on.
true.
Trying to think what else he's done. Jesus. And Adam McKay. Excluding this one though. Can't do this
Excluding
one.
this one. Academy Award nominee Adam McKay.
Academy Award, that's great. The only one I can think of is Anchorman 2.
All right. I
You
would've
sit
said
here.
Step Brothers, maybe.
I don't know.
All right, you got Anchorman versus Anchorman 2.
would
This
do
will be
Step
fun.
Brothers.
Dennis, don't count them out. Alicia might get cocky here. All right, Anchorman versus Anchorman 2. Alicia, 15 seconds, go.
Anchorman is become a classic comedy. It's one that you can rewatch time and time again. It's smart. It's funny. It gave like Steve Carell and Paul Rudd and all these actors a great chance to show their comedic chops, and it gave the best of Will Ferrell and what he's good at.
Dan, Anchorman 2.
I mean, Anchorman 2 has got all the stuff you love from Anchorman, but without the stupid setup. You got more jokes. It's fun. It's got a lot of great... just do it.
And I didn't even do a very good job with that, so.
I can't.
You were at a disadvantage.
I can't do that.
Oh, Dan's getting testy. I love it when he does, but I did not mean for it. There's the other guys, Talladega
Well,
Nights.
yeah, you're sitting there and
So
I'm
I just
sitting
wanted to
here.
make sure the reviewers knew as well. All right, 2. Number 2 has a visual aid guide, so keep your eyes on the screen. I'm gonna don't cue it yet,
God.
but there's a visual aid on the screen. Guys, please send in your bargain bin picks. Bargain bin picks because we get a lot of them. And this one comes from PP Pants City, who asked, "These two are in the bargain bin. Which do we buy?" Shallow
Bounty
Hal.
Hunter.
Okay, great. Shallow Hal or the Bounty Hunter? PP Pants. Thank you, PP Pants City. Sorry, so I heard you said Shallow Hal.
I said
I
Bounty
said
Hunter.
Shallow
sorry.
Hal.
Shallow
Okay.
Hal.
I
You
did
got
hear you
this
both say
one.
separate, but Shallow Hal versus Alicia's Bounty Hunter. All right, Dan, I heard Shallow Hal first, so Shallow Hal, go 15 seconds.
Gerard Butler is a terrible romantic lead. He is awful. He's great in action movies, but he's a terrible romantic lead. At least in Shallow Hal, Jack Black is a great comedian, and there are funny parts of that movie. Bounty Hunter is a wasteland. I would never pick Gerard Butler as the lead in that.
Alicia, 15 seconds, go.
You want to talk about offensive movies? Yeah, let's put Gwyneth Paltrow in a fat suit and then make fun of fat people for an hour and a half. It's not a funny movie at all, at least The Bounty Hunter. Yeah, it's generic, but it has some good moments about it. Shallow Hal is not funny at all.
I've seen both, and despite the in retrospect, bad, at least it's a Farrelly Brothers movies, it does have some laughs. You're giving it a hard time. Bounty Hunter is awful.
No, it's all about, oh, well, she'll be so much better and hotter if she's just skinny. Never mind her personality. And then the end, he figures out that it's all about personality.
Based on the arguments, you had a good start, but then you got hung up, but then you even disproved it. He did come in the end to say that it wasn't fat, so you almost
Yeah,
hurt
but after
yourself at
making
the
fun of
end.
it for an
They did.
hour
There
and
was
a
some
half.
other funny stuff. I gotta pick Dan. Amy Rose, based on the arguments, who did you pick?
It's hard to not pick making fun of fat people as the winner because that's terrible. Like, that's just messed up.
So you're picking the Bounty Hunter.
Yeah.
Ken,
Which
you're-
is terrible because I hate that movie. Do I have
Ken,
to?
based on the arguments.
Yeah, and you got 15 seconds to get your point across, and I thought Dan hit on some actual reasons why that movie would be better to watch versus just making fun of fat people.
Which is terrible.
Which,
So
by
Dan-
the way, is terrible.
I don't
Dan-
endorse it.
Dan gets the point.
I'm dealt the hands.
No, you're
You're helping me
doing
keep
good.
track of the score there, Dan, Ken?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because I lost my scoreboard.
I don't endorse
4-3,
endorse
4-3.
the
Number
Bounty
3.
Hunter.
Since The Martian took a Golden Globe spot from an actual comedy, what's the funniest movie of 2015?
Trainwreck.
Good one.
What We Do in the Shadows.
Trainwreck versus Shadows.
Was that
Does that-
2015? I think
I've
it
seen
came
it.
out this year.
I've seen it counted in
Yeah.
2015.
It came out this
Tell me
year.
if I'm wrong.
I
We
thought it was
saw it in
2014.
2014, but it came out this year.
Yeah, I thought it was 2014.
All right, Trainwreck, 15 seconds, go.
Trainwreck, it was such a funny movie because it subverted the genders. Instead of having the misogynistic guy, you've got the girl that sleeps around. Amy Schumer is so funny and have her a chance to give her comedic talents, and she wrote the film as well. It had me laughing so hard, my stomach hurt.
I laughed through about 3/4 of Trainwreck, but I thought the ending it really derailed it. It was so generic with the Lakers and the dancing. It completely spoiled what came before it. What We Do in the Shadows, I was laughing every minute at that movie. Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords, there are lines in that movie that are werewolves, not swearwolves.
5 seconds, Alicia.
That's a terrible New Zealand accent, and you should never use it again.
5 seconds, Dan.
I'll make a counter argument. I think Trainwreck is a flawed comedy. I think What We Do in the Shadows is a funnier comedy, and it does the genre better.
All right, Amy Rose, based on the arguments,
Dan.
you picked Dan. Ken,
Yeah, I didn't get a counter from Alicia other than a dance.
Because I love that movie. But I thought
I know you do.
I thought it was last
do.
year.
I know you do.
I thought it was last year. That's why I didn't say it.
February
I love that movie.
2015 and IMDb though also listed 2014.
Yes.
So, but
Where did it come out in New Zealand?
I'll have to look that up.
But it was
Fine,
up for
it's fine.
this year's Oscars, so
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
counting that.
Right.
All right. Dan gets the point.
5-3 Dan.
5-3, Dan. Okay. So you have to get this one, Alicia, in order to
Come on,
encourage
Leash.
the tie. All right?
Don't shake your head. Be in it.
Yeah, come on. Ready? Here we go. Which movie should have earned DiCaprio the Oscar?
Wolf of Wall Street.
I'm going to go with The Departed.
Okay. Wall Street versus Departed. 15 seconds for Dan. Go.
Leonardo DiCaprio is the engine that runs that movie, and he runs it for 3 hours flawlessly. He plays drama. He plays comedy. He gets completely lost in that character, and he makes us love this total asshole. He's the most unlovable person in the world, but we're rooting for him.
Alicia, go.
He is a really unlikable character. I think in The Departed, he got to play the good guy and that we love to follow. He also had to go undercover, so he showed the other side of him. He goes up against Jack Nicholson and he holds his own. He goes up against Matt Damon and he's a great cat and mouse in that game.
I mean, you mentioned it. He's a co-lead with Damon Nicholson in The Departed. He owns The Wolf of Wall Street, and I cannot imagine anyone else playing that role.
Wolf of Wall Street is so not fun to watch sometimes. It's an unlikable character. I think that he... Yeah. It's hard to argue against things
Ken,
you like.
I'll lead with you first now. Based on the arguments,
This is tough. Based on the arguments, I'm going to lean to Dan. He got me with the Nicholson and Damon also kind of being key to that movie and him owning Wall Street.
yeah, that was the one that sold me too. I think that's where the argument goes, and that means, sorry, Amy Rose. Well, who would you have picked?
I can't.
Doesn't matter now. I'll save you. That puts Dan in the 6-3. That means that you can't win, sadly, at this point. Alicia, Dan wins the game. But you are come from behind, right?
Yeah.
You did there at the very end. Good for you.
You crushed it.
You both crushed it. Thank you so much for coming and doing that. Wow, that was an exciting one. I got to plug you guys properly. Alicia Malone, Profiles. We got to support Profiles, right? What else? Alicia Malone, Twitter. What else can we send people to see you on?
Yeah, well, Profiles, we just did a Robert Altman Profiles, and Elliot Gould called in to talk about working with Altman. So if you want an education on Altman, then definitely watch Profiles. You can
love the
also
player.
see Girls on Film. Me too.
so good.
Oh, so good. That opening shot.
Oh my God,
long
so
take.
good. Yeah.
And also Girls on Film, and my YouTube is Movies Are My Jam.
Love it. Amy Rose Eisenbach at Amy Rose on Twitter.
Amy Rosie.
Amy Rosie, sorry. Where can people find you?
You can find me on the social channels. I was in front of the camera. This is one of my rare appearances now because I'm working on directing, and I'm working right now on a gangster drama that I hope to shoot next year, and you're all gonna love it.
Wow,
Yay!
good for you. Congrats.
Thank
and then
you.
Murrell Dan on Twitter.
Admiral Dan, I love gangster dramas.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Like The Departed.
This was when I saw the competition. I was like, "This is gonna be fun," and this was super fun. So
This was
was
super
a great
fun.
It was so
conversation
hard.
about movies.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked it, and go watch Die Hard and Galaxy Quest and Harry Potter. Too,
Yeah.
because
And
Alan
Robin
Rickman
Hood and Truly Madly Deeply
and
all of them.
Labyrinth and
Yes, Labyrinth,
everything
Prestige.
else. Yeah, Prestige.
Let's
so
have
much.
a movie night.
Ken Knapsack. I say it. I'm so
Whatever.
tired.
Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Knapsack.
Whatever.
You're in my knapsack.
That's what I'll carry your facts. Yeah, I can Napzok across the board. Thanks as always. This was a great fight to watch. This was for Oscar week. We got 3 movie nerds here, and that was a great fight. The fans are loving it. Amy Rose, quite a debut.
Yes.
Yes, very good. In the booth, JT, thank you much. You can follow me on at Andy Signore on Instagram and Twitter, and stay tuned for After the Fight if you're watching on Screen Junkies Plus. We're going to break down quickly and talk to you at home. That's it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a wonderful one. Bye-bye.
Every podcast we put on YouTube comes with this kick-ass graphic listing all the topics your favorite Screen Junkies podcasters are talking about. If you click the topics, you can skip around and choose your own podcast battle royale. Go ahead, try them all. If you haven't already, subscribe to Screen Junkies on YouTube to join us for future fights. Or if you prefer to listen on iTunes, click the logo to download an audio version.